Hey, welcome into the round pen with Duke here. We are ready for ride number 2. And I'm just going to move him around here for a second while I talk to you about something. Had a request, actually a couple of them. Would you do a video or a series of videos on natural horsemanship? So I thought about that, and I thought that's the equivalent of asking me to explain everything there is to know about women in 3 minutes or less. You know, I could say something, but you're not gonna be able to do it all in any short video. And in a way, I have over 300 videos on this channel, and almost all of them have to do with natural horsemanship in some way or another. What is natural horsemanship? As I understand it, and you know, there's books out there, there's lots of videos and so forth. As I understand it, natural horsemanship is simply understanding how horses communicate, how horses think, and communicating with them in a language they understand. That's natural horsemanship, okay? Something as simple as I'm going to ask him to move his hip, and I'm going to ask him in the same manner that the lead horse out in the pasture would ask him. I'm going to look at his hip, put pressure on it, and if he doesn't move it, I'm going to tap him. That lead horse would reach in there and bite him if he didn't move his hip. So I'm speaking horse language to him, a language that he understands. That's natural horsemanship. And there's a lot more to it, but that's the basic idea. I have a series of videos I did a few years ago called The Principles of Training, Principles of Horse Training. You can scroll down, you'll have to go down a ways to find them. And I think I had 7 or 8 videos on principles of horse training. But anyway, that's kind of the answer to that. Now, what am I doing with the feed sack on this horse's back? The first ride was, let me think, about 4 days ago. And he had, if you recall, if you didn't watch that, he had a little bit of trouble. He got a little bit scared when I asked him to trot. And so I kind of backed off a little bit. I didn't push it. I could have pushed it, but I didn't. And what I did was the next day, I got this 50-pound feed sack, tied it on his back, and started trotting him around out in the pasture, ponying him around from another horse. Just so he'd get used to trotting around with some weight on his back. And with some noise, making a little noise. And you can see he got just a little bit bothered there when I asked him to speed up. Okay. So I did not do it. I guess I did do a little bit of this here. Okay. So you can see his head's up. He's a little anxious about this because of the weight and the noise. But this is how I thought, well, maybe this will help him get used to it. I just took a cinch and a rope and kind of strapped it down there. I don't know how tight it is. So far it's staying on. Good. All right. And when he started looking around, that tells me he kind of accepted it and was wanting to think about something else. Remember, he's a kid. He doesn't have a long attention span. Now, I haven't done this yet. I'm just kind of trying some stuff out. You're seeing it as it happens. I have put the tarp on him. I did put that on a previous video and rubbed him with the tarp, had him carry it around, but I haven't had him do both of these. Okay, and this thing is sliding a little bit again. Okay, I sure don't want it to slide to the side. Give me a minute here. So, all right, there we go. Okay, so he's used to the tarp and he's used to the feed sack. Can we do both at the same time? Again, I'm just trying to find something that might be a little more nerve-wracking than me sitting on his back. Okay, let's see what he thinks about that. So it seems to me that a tarp and a feed sack would be cause a little more anxiety than just the old cowboy sitting up there, and he's handling that really well. I'm thinking maybe that'll blow off, and I kind of want it to. Okay, let's change directions. Change directions. Trot off that way. Good boy. So he's kind of humping up a little bit, kind of catching himself, grabbing himself, as we say. It's okay. Let him work through that. Good. Now he's licking and chewing. Now he's dropping his head. Okay. Again, there's natural horsemanship. Just letting him think, letting him process. I'll recommend some books to you if you seriously want to learn how horses think and how they process. And there are a lot of them. I'm sure I'm not going to give you an exhaustive list. The one that I recommend first and foremost to everybody is Monty Roberts' book, The Man Who Listens to Horses. Monty he's kind of a pioneer, at least in the last half a century, with this, and understands horse thinking, I think, as well as anybody. It's a really good book, really readable book, The Man Who Listens to Horses. Buck Brannaman has a book, and I think it's just called Buck. I can't remember the title, but I believe that's what it's called. Mark Rashid has a pretty good book called Horses Never Lie. It's a really good book to help you understand some of this. Martin Black and Dr. Stephen Peters have a book called Evidence-Based Horsemanship, which is more on the mental side, which is some of that I've mentioned here a minute ago, letting him lick and chew, more understanding how horses think and how they process scary objects and that sort of stuff. So those are just a few maybe to get you started. I think they're very valuable. All of them helped me, and most of those books I've read twice, or at least. At least. And then also Ray Hunt wrote a book, and I've read it a couple of times too. It's called Harmony with Horses. To me, that book's a bit harder to read, and if you don't have a pretty good understanding of horsemanship to begin with, you'll have a hard time understanding it. That's just my take on it. Somebody else might have a different opinion, but that's my take on it. And Ray Hunt was one of the fathers of this. There we go. That's about to fall off again, and I'm going to be excellent. I love that he stopped. I love that he stopped and licked his lips. Okay. Good boy. That's really good. Okay. So I'm going to do all the same ride prep that I did before with the stirrups, bumping his belly. We're going to go through all of that again and make sure that all of that is still good. That cinch could use one more notch. Okay. All right. And I'm going to do something, I don't know if I've done this with the bridle. I've done this with the halter quite a bit. I'm going to take my offside rein. One reason I like to use split reins, by the way. And pull him and ask him to come around that way. Good. Okay. So that bothered him a little because I hadn't done it with the bridle. I've done it with the halter quite a bit. I haven't done it with the bridle. Okay. This just causes him to have to think with both sides of his brain. All right? Horses have two sides of their brain, and they think independently a lot of times. So I'm asking him to think with both sides of his brain at the same time. Change eyes with me. And he's a little fussy about letting me get on his right side. He doesn't really like me right here. Okay? So he'll get over that over time. And I just go back and forth. Okay, it's inviting me just a little. I'm going to go back and forth at least 2 or 3 times on both sides till I feel him kind of soften up and not be anxious about it. And this colt isn't overreactive, but that doesn't mean he's not anxious. See, we make an assumption because he's not jumping sideways, then that means he's not nervous. No, he's just not the kind of horse who's overreactive. He's not overreactive, but he's going to respond. He's going to have the same emotions as any other colt. Okay, that's getting a little better.